Google is, believe it or not, they also use that.
That's fine. So, that involves looking down, let's be honest. And so if you can get your route guidance on a heads-up display, that can presumably be safer than on an iPhone. But at the same time, you certainly shouldn't be doing other things while you're driving that are not related to driving.
So one thing I failed to mention, on the inside of these, on this device, as you can see, there is a sensor which Google uses it is a sensor that sort of measures like how close your eye is, and they actually use that to, as an experimental feature called wink. So you can wink and do something. And they're, in my circle of...
It measures what again?
It could take a picture. So it basically measures the amount of light that comes in, and it uses that to trigger the camera function. In our circles with explorers and developers and businesses are looking at ways to use that to prevent you from falling asleep while you're
absolutely driving. And also if it was connected to something that when there's a glare it could alter the lens to adjust for the glare. And wake you if it notices that you're nodding off. So there's a number of, it's just an example. So states, in this case, states should be very careful about crafting legislation, prohibiting driving. It should be, narrow, or there should be a safe harbor for driving-related apps that enhance the safety of driving.
Right. And so where I come in with this thing is also, I decided to quit my full-time job a year ago in order to try to tackle a problem that I had with working out with my cell phone and a tablet, where I would have to break my, CrossFit routine and mark on my tablet that yes, I have done 10 pull-ups or 10 sit-ups. Well, a wearable device, whether wrist-worn or head-mounted, with an accelerometer, a motion sensor, is able to sort of give me certain bits of information that a traditional cell phone wouldn't. So it actually sort of scares me when you have your colleagues talking about banning a product outright without even weighing the benefits and the problems that it might.
Well, I think part of what politicians feel is probably similar to what cops feel and others, is because politicians are generally defined as public people. We're fair game to film no matter what we're doing. We have no expectation of privacy under the law. That's why somebody can take our picture buying groceries, and there's nothing we can do. We have given that up because we have no reasonable expectation of privacy. Neither do celebrities. There's no. It's a definition through precedent. But when Donald Trump is out and about, or the paparazzi's following somebody, legally they're allowed to do that, whereas they're basically not allowed to harass you as a private person. So politicians. We already have trackers that follow us and film us, but now you could have a whole army of trackers. So it's inconvenient to politicians, but that's very good for transparency and democratic accountability. Obviously, people have to realize that politicians are human, but it's
are
they? That could be one reason that politicians don't like it. Same reason cops don't like it. All of a sudden, some of the things that are not supposed to be doing, that nobody knew about, people might find out about. So politicians, cops, people like that, that's why they probably are uncomfortable with it. But I think most consumers and society likes that. They consider it a net plus, that now they're like, able to watch over these folks a little bit better. But there's no reasonable expectation of privacy that politicians have.
So Alex is our tech policy reporter, and he's reported a lot about this issue and Google Glass. Do you have any questions for Congressman?
I guess maybe Noble, and then you can follow up on this. There's a lot of promise, like in the future, for say emergency responders.
Right.
You can get real-time building layouts, or say construction workers who can see instructions while using both hands.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what the future of this might look like and some of the other potential benefits?
Sure. There are a lot of opportunities with having your hands free and being able to access an internet-connected service. So what comes to mind is telementoring from a first responder standpoint, being able to show up at the scene, have a layout of what they're where they are and what to see, or something specific to the situation that they're in, and also having experts from around the world, in the case of medicine, to be able to sort of advise that, from anywhere from a consumer that says, oh my God, my son is having an epileptic, I think my son is having an epileptic fit, okay glass, diagnose, and having a professional, obviously get some professional.
And that's where
dispatch.
rules and regs might need to catch up,
Right.
because it's a whole realm of telemedicine. You probably, again, want to create some kind of safe harbor where a physician can give their best guess, which would be short of a personal diagnosis, but
Right.
at least let them, if they see
Get
something
the-
happening,
get
they
the-
can, without incurring a lot of liability.
Right, get the,
Somehow tennis came up.
sorry, I'm.
My serve. Also, this isn't truly hands-free at this point. I mean, you tap and you scroll, but I think with the evolution of it, hopefully at some point it'll be sensitive to eye movements, presumably, and blinking.
So the way we use, and I'm sorry, somehow it went to, okay, so the way we
I must have
use.
said something that sounded like tennis.
The way we use, my company, builds what we bill as a personal fitness companion, or virtual fitness coach. And so a lot of our functionality is actually hands-free, because, unless
You built it that way.
And we built it that way. So it is capable now, depending on the application, to have a completely hands-free experience.
Just using
with
voice.
it. However, there's always going to be some, imagine, traveling and, heading to the airport with your hands full. Right now, you can actually, look up and get your flight information, your calendar information, speak to it, and get relevant information there. So, of course, there are going to be different design methodologies as to how the product designer wants their product to be interacted with. So if it's pure voice, like what we're trying to do, because we wanted to sort of mimic, your coach standing right next to you. So you go, a little harder, I want to change the time, tell me a story, whatever it is. We want it to be voice activated, and the technology is not quite there yet. But right now, what we have, is pretty impressive as far as hands-free is concerned.
Sorry to interrupt really quickly, but I know that we need to wrap up. I just have one last question for you,
Sure.
Congressman. In terms of technology adoption and sort of the rate that we're going at for really new technologies coming out into the market for consumer use, versus the rate that legislation can get passed or regulation can be approved, do you have any sort of opinion about like the disparity there? And
Well, I don't. Is there any been legislation around these that's been
Not that
proposed?
I know
I
of,
don't
no.
think there's any need for legislation. I mean, this fits into the continuum of products that has been around for decades. I mean, you used to have to stick a camera on your shoulder and walk around, and I mean, frankly, it's not very different than holding your cell phone up and filming somebody. If
Or
you're
just
talking
putting it in your
privacy
pocket,
perspective.
like-
Yeah, right. I mean,
like
there's
the movie Her.
exactly. So. There's no real legislation. I mean, again, there's an interface with driving. That's a state prerogative. You have to look at both sides of that, and I mean, it's a nuanced thing.
more generally in terms of technology, in terms of developing technologies, new and developing technologies?
Well, I mean, you
Things
know,
like, for instance, Bitcoin and RoboCoin ATMs, which I know that you had done a quick demonstration with earlier this.
Well, I mean, usually you have to really understand the technology and see how it interacts with a whole variety of aspects of society before legislation is appropriate, because legislation is a semi-permanent approach, and it's a very kind of heavy hand. So you generally have to kind of let things mature in the marketplace before you can figure out the exact parameters. But in a particular technology like this, there's not, again, any imminent issue, except for the interaction with driving and perhaps other activities that require attention, and that's more appropriately done at the state level.
Okay. Any other questions?
I mean, it could probably also measure whether you're drunk or high by pupil dilation, whether you're safe to drive. So there's a lot of
R&D
Yeah.
going into that as we speak, actually. So,
yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I think we're good.
great.